Hello and welcome to Let's Talk Goals, where we talk about how you and I can help make Jamaica the best place to live, work, raise families, and do business by achieving 17 big goals. And we're talking about the Sustainable Development Goals, or the SDGs. Countries all around the world have agreed to work on these goals to make the world a better place by 2030. Now, the idea is simple enough. Everyone, everywhere, should be able to live a good life without harming the planet. And without harming the planet, that's the sustainable part of sustainable development. Without the planet, we do not have a home. So these goals are really about keeping our home functioning well. And as I've said throughout the series, at the end of the day, a national plan is just that, a plan for every Jamaican, national for every person. We live in our homes, we live in our communities, and we contribute to the development in our work. So we all have to act. So today it's all about industries and linkages with partners, and two partners are in the house today. Mrs. Monique Gibbs-Saunders is Senior Director of Strategic Planning, Performance Monitoring, Evaluation and Risk Management at the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation. And what she does is essentially plans and monitors government projects, checks if the programs are working well, and manages risks to ensure that they do work well. And she's worked in many government roles. And we have David Wayne Dobson. He is Chief Technical Director of the Ministry of Tourism. He leads and manages tourism projects and policies, develops programs to boost Jamaica's tourism, and focuses on helping small and community-based tourism businesses. And he has held senior roles in healthcare, managing major hospitals. And so I want to talk first about the roles of the different kinds of ministries. First, the super ministry, as I call it, the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation in relation to the SDGs. What do you do?
Well, as you said, we are a large ministry with quite a number of portfolio areas. We are essentially created back in 2016 with the main objective of creating that enabling environment for matters such as water, work, sports, land, housing, urban renewal. And we also have very critical areas, environment and climate change. So it's how we have all these key agencies and departments to facilitate that, and for other ministries as well. And
for the Ministry of Tourism?
For the Ministry of Tourism, it is actually what we call a ubiquitous creature that integrates with almost every other sector in order to create seamless experiences to our visitors who come to Jamaica. The ministry, the parent ministry, essentially focuses on legislation and policies. And we have some public bodies that, for example, the Jamaica Tourist Board handles marketing, tourism marketing. We have product development. We have enhancement of the tourism space, and marketing essentially in all of the other areas such as airlift and cruise and all of that. So tourism touches all the other ministries to ensure that our work goes well.
So you're an enabler, and you're working on creating an enabling environment. And I want to break that down for people, because often government is seen as this really very sort of mysterious in our complex being. But when you take it from the level of a community, and indeed Jamaica is one big community in that sense, it's about ensuring that there are certain things in your community that make it function well. And everyone can relate to that from many different perspectives. For instance, if you live in a community, you want to ensure that you have good local leadership, people who listen and make good decisions. You want to ensure that you have some particular kinds of resources, easy access, for instance, to clean water, schools and hospitals, or better facilities like roads and parks and public spaces, job opportunities. You want everyone to be safe. You want the place to be clean. So that's the environment, learning and skills. You want everyone to get along. That's inclusivity. And when you hear those different kinds of areas, they really are in alignment, I would say, with the SGDs, because that's what those are really about, creating a particular kind of community. So let's talk about the particular SDGs that the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation is working with. What are the particular areas that you are interested in, or focusing on rather?
Well, there are 7 SDGs that currently apply to our ministry. There is the other 17, which is Partnership for Goals. So you will see in our ministry, we have a lot of linkages to use the phrase from my colleague in terms of the other ministries. So if we're to look at tourism, who's here with us today, we have the Port Authority of Jamaica, which has cruise. So you'll see a lot of linkages in terms of the tourism sector between our ministry and the Ministry of Tourism. And to bring it to the common man, we do know that is a sector that provides a lot of employment, generates a lot of revenue for particular sectors in our society. So that is just one example of how we provide that enabling environment for the general populace. So we have 7, which includes water, which you just mentioned.
That's goal 6, which is clean water and sanitation. Clean water, proper toilets, waste disposal.
Waste disposal. So we have the Rural Water Supply Limited, who is currently embarking on providing water for communities right across the length and breadth of the island. The Prime Minister would have announced in his sectoral presentation the many communities that will benefit this financial year from clean water through those projects. We have the National Water Commission as well, and we also have the Water Resources Authority, which seeks to ensure that the quality of water is maintained, and of course the National Environment and Planning Agencies, quite a number of agencies that we have on our purview.
And that's just in relation to water, because you're creating the environment, so you want to ensure the enabling environment, so you want to ensure that the water policies, for instance, rural water policies, urban water policies, all of that needs to make sense.
Indeed, and we have actually a recently approved water sector policy which went through a laborious process. So we're actually implementing those activities, and we have a water council which at the ministerial level also looks at how we are ensuring to meet those goals and objectives in the water sector policy.
All right, so the clean water and sanitation, that's one goal, and that's one way in which you're ensuring that all of those goals hang together, so that whatever agency you're in, all of those agencies, all of those ministries work together to achieve that particular goal. Another one has to do with the goal 8 that you mentioned, which is decent work and environment. So you want to ensure that and this aligns with the very name of the ministry. Mm-hmm. You know, good jobs, that people that pay well and keep the economy growing. What are the policies that you're working on in that area, or how are you working to ensure that, you know, all of the different ministries and agencies help to supply and reach that goal?
Well, I could just pull on one sector, critical sector right now. Wherever you look across the country, there is a lot of development taking place. So we have a construction industry policy, which we're currently working on to update during this fiscal year, which will impact everyone in every sector, from that person that is, you know, mixing the mortar for the buildings right up to those who are involved in the actual execution of those properties. So that is just one example of how we are working as a policy-based ministry similar to tourism to create that enabling environment.
And now tourism also an enabler, as you pointed out earlier. You are also working on that goal of decent work and economic growth. That's goal 8. But also talking, for instance, about goal 14, life below water. Right. Why would that be an important goal for the tourism ministry?
Well, as you know, the majority of our tourism infrastructure exists on the coast. And one of the big things that Jamaica has to market to the world is our sand and our sea. And so a lot of water-based in our activities and water sports in our riverine and marine spaces are also part of tourism. And so that has to be a major part of our concerns. Of course, you know, it has to do with the movement of people. It also has to be with the supplies to the tourism sector, including our fish, our nice fresh fish and all of that. So, of course, the blue economy is very, very essential to tourism sustainability.
That's the why. How do you do it? Because these are a range of oftentimes diverse, you know, tourism attractions, diverse pieces of legislation. How do you ensure that it all hangs together and makes sense so you achieve the actual goal?
Right, so that's a very good question. We partnership, as we explained earlier, is part of what we do. So each ministry and their respective agencies will have their own legislations and policies. Mm-hmm. And so we have to incorporate some of those. But for the tourism space we are actually almost at the completion of our water sports policy, which of course will regulate all the activities in our riverine and marine spaces. And that is just a little bit away from completion. We also have what we call destination assurance framework and strategy. That is that tool that partner with all the other agencies to ensure that our visitors have a very seamless experience, because your visitors come here for experiences, and that experience, everybody has to play their role to ensure that it is seamless. Because if they come and they did not have a good experience, of course, not only they will not return, but they will not encourage others. And when the reviews are out, it will impact our product. So, of course, our minister likes to say that framework encompasses 3 S's, which is safety, security, and seamlessness. And in order to get that, it requires a lot of collaboration for each entity to play its role in support of this mission.
What does that collaboration look like? Are you all in one room? How do you ensure that everyone understands it?
So there are organizations, I would say, yes, at the ground level, and it includes representation from the respective bodies. And so that collaboration takes place at ground level. They also take place at the ministerial level, where there are understandings, and we have to ensure that there are performance standards, for example, and where the standards fall below our expectation, there is that discussions. There are those discussions that help to improve and ensure that the next time around it's not the same. But collaboration is really the key, and partnership.
Mm-hmm. Partnership for growth.
Yes, a partnership for growth, by the way, for growth, which is let's go 17, which is about ensuring, well, I should better ask you, what is goal 17 about?
Partnership for goals. So you will find that in government, there is a lot of stakeholder engagement. Mm-hmm. Persons may be concerned that processes may be a bit bureaucratic, but I would like them to understand that the processes that we use as civil servants are so designed to ensure that the policies and the legislation are robust, our programs are robust, and there is efficacy in how we execute and spend public funds. So just to have that appreciation for how we proceed. As he's speaking about ecotourism, we too have a beach access policy that was recently approved. We have our watersheds policy. We have our keys management policy. So it shows that with every initiative that we're undertaking, it is again partnering for goals.
How do you actually partner? So you have your policy, he has an interest in water sports, you have a water policy, they're kind of related. How do you let him know that you're doing this, and vice versa? How does it happen in a practical way?
In a practical way, if it's a policy or a legislation, it goes through a consultative process. It involves not only sending the documents across to the various ministries, but also using collaborative sessions and meetings, CTD, to have those matters dealt with in a very timely manner. There is also another layer of consultation and collaboration which takes place at Parliament and at Cabinet level. And we also have things like town hall meetings. Even what we're doing here today is an example of stakeholder engagement, getting the word out to ensure that we get the necessary feedback to have a robust policy or legislation.
Right.
I remember the former Director General of the Planning Institute of Jamaica used to say, government things take time. So on one hand, you have people saying, this takes a lot of time, but it's really important from what perspective to have this sort of partnership.
Right. And I would say partnerships also occur through development of task force, for example.
Yes.
So these task force allow each ministry and agency to include key focal points that sit together, flesh things out. Because if the time you speak about, if you are to complete something and send it to the other ministry and you go to and fro several times, then certainly that will take time. Yeah. So there comes a time when you have to bring everyone to the table. We have to work through it. And then the end result is, of course, much stronger and will be able to get us through that quicker.
So overall, you end up with a more effective process, even though it takes time, because everybody is on one board, is on the same table.
Right.
I want to talk about two of the other goals for the tourism ministry. So we talked about decent work and economic growth, and we talked about life below sea. One of the other important goals for the Ministry of Tourism that you're focusing on in terms of the SDGs is quality education, which means making sure that everyone has a good education. Now here, tourism, and I expect to be hearing, oh, this is about the Ministry of Education. So explain to me, how do you link up? Why does this matter to you?
Excellent. So tourism is one of our leading employers in the country. While the purview of education is that of the Ministry of Education, tourism has to be concerned that the labor market arrangements are in place to always sustain the sector. Now, if you recall quite recently when we had COVID-19 and the sector fell flat, one of the things is that a number of the employees never actually returned and persons moved on to different places. Hence, it becomes our responsibility to ensure that the sector continues, because you can't operate. Tourism really use a lot of labor.
Without people.
And tourism use multiple levels of education and skills. Hence, we have to continue to educate and train. So within the Tourism Enhancement Fund, we do have what we call the Jamaica Center of Innovation. And they have been doing an excellent work in one, training and certifying people. And those certifications are done at international levels through either the American Culinary Foundation and American Hospitality Institute and all of that. So persons are given opportunity to not just sit in a room, but they actually get practical experiences in the hotels themselves, who are partners. And after that, they are internationally certified. There are several other levels of training. Many persons in the past would have worked in the sector and had never had exposure to any form of training, even at supervisory levels. And so the Center for Tourism Innovation would have done so. Persons who are trained and certified are then able to be added to a database. So whenever the sector is seeking employees, you can go to that database and you find persons who are trained and educated and certified.
So here you're talking about education at two levels there. You want to be consulting with the ministry to ensure that you have workers with a certain skill level, but also using their expertise to develop the particular skills that will enhance tourism.
And part of the partnership with the Ministry of Education is that tourism actually, in that partnership, has a tourism program in school, in high schools, so that persons who would have graduated and then not matriculate into sixth form, they have an opportunity to go into a sixth form program for 2 years, at the end of which they get an associate degree in tourism.
Okay.
And they can seamlessly integrate into the sector or pursue higher education. So that is a part of the partnership, and we believe it is working excellently, and we are actually imploring persons to take advantage of these opportunities, because we based on the trajectory, we are seeing that at least 15,000 more workers will be required within the next 5 years.
Wow.
And the levels at which these skills are being demanded continue to also increase. And so persons really have to seek to be educated and be certified in order to take advantage of the opportunities.
There was a word you used when you were during that explanation. You talked about innovation, and that brings me to goal 9. And I'm back to you, where you talk about industry, innovation, and infrastructure, all on one goal.
Yes.
Infrastructure, big goal. So we're talking about building strong industries and infrastructure that are innovative and stand the test of time, especially, which is really important when you consider where Jamaica is, our hurricane zone, etc. And infrastructure, works, roads, ports, a huge part of what the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation does.
Indeed. So we have the National Works Agency, we have NROC as well, and the NWC also does some level of infrastructure. Housing falls on our purview, so that crosses 2 goals with our housing agency as well. What can I say about the National Works Agency? Without the National Works Agency, we would not have the connectivity that we have across our island. With every major highway project that is completed, the most recent being S-Chip, you see the ease in commute, the improvement even for tourism, because there's a linkage there in terms of providing sites. When we did segment 3 as well as segment 2, segment 1, you can
Highway
see
2000.
Well, that is, yes, so Highway 2000, segment 1, segment 2 and 3 were done under the National Works Agency. And you see even our commute, not only for the major highways, but the improvements in our corporate area. We do have the SPARK program that's coming out. We have the special CAPEX that is going to address a number of areas, including Portmore and Kingston, to provide a better commute, improve productivity, and less stress and discomfort in getting, you know, from work to home and back. So,
but also new opportunities in terms of even housing.
And we'll get into that because the Housing Agency of Jamaica has a suite of projects that they are coming out with. The Jamaica Mortgage Bank provides support to home developers. The Real Estate Board, Commissioner Short to corporations, who provides that framework to ensure that homes are orderly in that regard. We do have rent assessment board on our purview. So many persons are either a landlord or a tenant.
Yes.
And we're improving and the Rent Restriction Act to treat with matters of that nature. So it's quite a bit that we do, and the nature of what we do has every impact on the common Jamaican.
And I actually want to take the conversation there as we, you know, move to close the conversation, because very often, you know, people think of government again as more complex, but it's the kind of thing you do in your home. It's the way in which you want to operate in your community to ensure that you have a particular kind of community that you live in, and people have to understand, as you've been saying, that partnership is a key part of all of that. So I want to take it to from the level now of what different kinds of partners can do to be a part of this effort, because we can see the benefit at the national level, but we can also understand what it means for our community. So first, now, in terms of civil servants and public administrators, if I'm in a ministry and I'm hearing all of this information about the Sustainable Development Goals and Vision 2030, which is our own national plan to attain those SDGs, what is it that I'm supposed to be doing as an individual?
Well, of course, pay your taxes, if I can say it that way. Make your contribution.
Yes.
We do need the revenue. It is what finances all the major projects and programs that we have. Development partners do provide support in terms of grant funding, but in order for us to finance the billions of dollars that we have to put in terms of capital projects and our recurrent budget, we do need the revenues to come in from in that regard. We do need our citizens to play their part in terms of giving feedback when we have those town hall meetings, when we have our stakeholder engagements, when we ask you to provide feedback. Do provide us with the feedback. Government right now is on a big initiative in terms of customer service, and a lot of government at your service and service excellence. So we are actually structuring ourselves not just only to be policy and legislation, but actually to ensure that we are improving the service that we provide to you. So that is what I would suggest in that regard. The Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, our website is available, megjc.gov.jm. You can go on our website, you can check our Instagram page, social media pages too, and provide us with your feedback, any questions or queries. Because the last thing I want to add, I didn't mention the National Land Agency, yes, which is very important. Your land title is like cash in hand. And I know the National Land Agency is currently having some clinics to ensure that persons have that facility to get their titles in hand.
Now, in relation to, again, we talked about, you commented there on civil servants and just sort of general members of the public, what they can do as part of the effort. But let's also talk about international development partners. Tourism is perhaps one of those spaces where you have a lot of partners, always about how we create synergies with people all across the world. In terms of us achieving those SDGs, some of the ones that tourism is focused on: quality education, decent work and economic growth, responsible consumption and production, and life below water. What role is there for international development partners in terms of us achieving those goals?
Right. So first of all, international development partners get into our space mainly through foreign direct investment. And when we attract investors, we always expect that the investors will assist in the product they develop. For example, we must protect our marine spaces, we must protect our wetlands, and so we have to look at the cost of putting up infrastructure in places where it may have a negative impact, and their role is really to mitigate. Their role also is to build stronger communities. And this is done in many ways, including employing, that's where the decent work comes in, and also through corporate social responsibility. So we are seeing much more of that happening, and we encourage more to do that. The ministry has a program. We are currently embarking on what we call measurement of sustainable tourism, which is a framework to measure everything, including environment, the decent work, as you put it, and social and other factors. And so that is something we believe we will be partnering with our international partners as well as local, to ensure that we are practicing what we call responsible tourism. And so that we do not practice tourism to the extent where we have degradation or decline in our environmental assets, and that our people are getting better off from participating in the tourism product.
I hear the argument I hear you talk about partnership and how people can get involved. What's the argument for them getting involved?
Oh, well, that's an excellent point. That the infrastructure comes and the market brings the people in, and there is a huge opportunity for Jamaicans to now be on the supply side. Tourism brings in everything. All the food, all the utensils, or for some manufacturing and agriculture and everywhere has an opportunity to supply to the sector. So no investor is going to come here unless their assessment proves that the country has the absorptive capacity. And so we are encouraging persons to be a part of this, be a part of the Linkages program, because our Linkages program also enables persons both in agriculture and manufacturing,
small farmers.
And small farmers. So we do have a partnership with agriculture, for example, and if you look at it, there is Linkages, which is a platform where supplies are done through that platform, and in 2023 the trading on that platform was over $450 million.
Wow.
And the speed networking, for example, is one where the purveyors and the hoteliers are placed in one place. You have a short appointment, and this allows them to have an opportunity to supply. And we are seeing where since 2016 that this program has been going on, it has gross somewhere over $1 billion of trading. So these are some of the things we do, and persons just need to understand that there are opportunities, and so they need to capitalize. And if you're not sure of how you can, the Linkages program have numerous opportunities. And the last one I would mention, that through the Tourism Enhancement Fund, there is always there's also an incubator program where young and upcoming entrepreneurs can come in with their products into this incubator and receive support of many different types in order for their product to come to maturity and be able to also impact the tourism market.
And all of this information, you say, available on the ministry's website, on your different social media pages.
Yes.
People can go and search for the information, find out what the opportunities are and what they present to them in their families, in their homes, and in their communities as well.
That's correct.
Thank you so very much, Monique Gibbs-Saunders, Senior Director of Strategic Planning, Performance Monitoring, Evaluation and Risk Management at the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, and David Dobson, who is Chief Technical Director, the Ministry of Tourism. And remember, you can get information from the Planning Institute's website and social media pages, as well as the social media pages and website of MEGJED, MEGGC, that's Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, and the Ministry of Tourism as well. Thank you so much again, as I said, for joining us. And thank you at home for watching. I'm Archibald Gordon. Until next time, take care.